Welcome to Electric Violin Labs. Today we're going to talk about how you can get to know any pedal on your pedal board a lot better. I want you to take a look at a pedal you own, any pedal, it doesn't matter which one, and ask yourself 3 questions. First, do I know what this pedal is actually doing to my signal when it's engaged? Second, how does what it does interact specifically with my violin technique, with how the bow sustains, with the different kinds of attacks and releases, and what about the right hand technique, with your natural vibrato? Third, does my pickup type change how this pedal behaves? And if so, what do I need to account for in my playing? If you can answer all 3 of these confidently, then you pretty much know your pedal. If you can answer 1 or 2 questions, then you're further than most players. If these questions seem strange, or if you're not even sure why you need to answer them in the first place, then stick around. This video is for you. Before you engage a single pedal, you need to know your instrument and its pickup type. This impacts whether you can plug directly into the pedal or if you need a preamp. Knowing the impedance of the pedal helps as well. For example, some multi-pedals are designed to meet a high impedance input like a piezo pickup, so you may not need a preamp. Other pedals are not designed for that at all, and you might need a preamp to make them work properly. Now, step 1 is the step that most players skip, but I think it's the most important, which is play your instrument without any effects engaged and listen. A real, considered listen. Play something musical, a slow phrase, a passage that has some dynamic variation from piano to forte. Listen to the frequency balance of your instrument. Where does it sound warm? Where does it sound bright? Is there any harshness in the upper registers? Is there any boxiness on the lower strings? How does the tone change when you move from the frog of the bow to the tip? When you add your vibrato versus playing with a straight tone? Your instrument played in combination with your preamp and your EQ creates your reference tone. And you can really only understand what a particular pedal is doing to your tone if you know your tone first. If you don't have a clear mental picture of where you're starting, then you have no way to evaluate what the pedal is adding, removing, or changing about your tone and whether you like that or not. The next step of this process is to identify the family of your particular pedal. Knowing the family tells you what you're about to hear before you actually hear it. Knowing the effects family the pedal belongs to also helps with placing your pedal in your pedal chain. Now, there are some general rules for signal chain placement of pedals, and you can follow those rules, but you can also break those rules more easily and with more predictable results when you know what is happening to your signal at each step in the chain. If you're curious about the pedal families, I introduced the periodic table of effects and a video about that last week, so you can go ahead and find it, and I'll link it in the description. Your next step is to turn your pedal on, but it's best when you're doing this kind of a thing to engage the pedal at factory defaults or with all of the controls at a completely neutral level and play the exact same phrase that you used for your bass line as you are testing out the pedal. Through the first pass, listen for the action of the pedal. Do you hear the thing that the pedal is actually supposed to do? If it's a gain pedal, do you hear more harmonic saturation? Do you hear more texture? Do you hear the edges of the tone becoming more complex? The second listening pass is specifically aimed at your bow and your right hand technique. Listen to what happens during sustained tones. How does the pedal behave during that sustain? How does a reverb tail last or not last? How does your compressor act when you're holding a long bow or when you are doing faster bow changes? Listen to what happens at the bow attack, the very beginning of the note. Different bowing techniques create different attack shapes. Try starting from the string gently, then try a clean détaché, and try other strokes that you use in your regular playing, which might be more off the bow strokes or even chopping. How is your pedal responding to each of these attack types? Then listen to what happens when you add vibrato, if you use vibrato in your playing. If you are testing a pedal that also modulates pitch, like chorus, phaser, vibrato, tremolo, then the two might be in conflict with each other. Listen for which one is happening and make sure that you understand how the pedal works with your natural way of playing. Step 4 is where most of the learning about a particular pedal and its setting happens, and this requires the most patience. I'm going to tell you to take one control at a time, just one, and move it slowly from its minimum value all the way to its maximum value while you're playing. So this is a good time to do like a nice extended open string with your bow hand while you're using your left hand and adjusting like on a tabletop or somewhere where you can reach it. And don't jump to an immediate setting or stop. Do a full sweep for the extremes. Why? The extremes are information, and they help you understand the full range of the pedal in the way that stopping somewhere in the middle doesn't. At minimum, you hear basically what it sounds like with that particular setting off. At maximum, you hear the most exaggerated version of the effect. Most of the settings that you're going to use are typically somewhere between the extremes, but you can only know what's useful for you, for your playing style, and for your personal taste after testing the extremes and testing in between the settings. As you continue the slow sweeping on each control, listen specifically through the lens of your bow's physics. So, for example, if you're listening to a compressor's release control, what does a very fast release sound like when you change bow direction? What does it sound like when it's very slow? Doing this for every control on the pedal before you settle on any settings takes some time. When I'm doing this, I like to take a picture of the pedal with my phone when I like a particular setting and use it as a future reference, because when you're gigging and moving things around, knobs can get knocked around when the pedals are in transit. So I like to have that visual reference. Once you have a working setting you like, the next step is where you actually stress test it against the full range of the songs that you play. When we're testing, we use a slow, sustained passage, and that really shows our violin sort of at its most flattering, but that's not our entire playing vocabulary. And a pedal that sounds good while we are doing a solo on one passage might behave really differently when we're doing rhythmic chops or accompaniment on another. Play the pedal with the music that you want to use it to play. Use the bow strokes, the bowings, the volume to fully understand how the effect will actually interact with your playing. Some effects are quite sensitive to bow pressure changes. Others are sensitive to bow articulation or vibrato. Playing how you normally play will reveal any adjustments that you might want to make or need to make to the settings to make that pedal useful in your actual gig. Test it at pianissimo. You can play quietly and listen to if the pedal adds noise or character to the soft dynamics that you don't really like. Sometimes some very robust overdrive pedals can add a hiss that you can hear at moderate volume and a hiss that's really obvious when you're playing quietly. Test at fortissimo and learn how hard you can play before you get bow noise and how your compressor is or is not reacting to any spikes that are happening in your playing. The final step, placing the pedal in your chain and then testing whether that placement is actually the right one for your signal. The default order tends to look something like dynamics, filter, pitch, gain, modulation, time, and then texture and generative pedals, sort of going earlier in the chain based on the desired goal. If you have an established pedal board, then use the general order recommendation to add a new pedal to your board first. Then test it in that position and listen. You can try moving a pedal one position earlier in the chain and listen to what it changes. Try moving it one position later, listen to what changes. Determining what suits your sound and the music you're making is the artistry of sound design, and no rules can tell you what that looks like. After you've done this step, you will know your pedal. You know what it does to your signal. You'll know how it interacts with your instrument, your specific technique. You'll know where it belongs in the chain and what it sounds like in that position, which tells you how it impacts your overall tone. That's the complete picture of a pedal. If you found this video helpful in learning how to use your effects pedals with your electric violin, then please click like and subscribe so I can keep making more content for you. Thanks. Take care.